All right, it is Tuesday night, and finally we have college hockey back. It was the first weekend of the season, so that means we have our first new season, I guess, of goal horns and fight songs. We're finally back. We're finally there. And to start off the first, I guess, or celebrate the first weekend of the season, we have a little bit of a special guest with us tonight.
That is true. Joining us is current goaltender Cam Rowe. He's a former Big Ten All-Team rookie team member. He's a co-winner of Wisconsin's Mark Johnson Rookie of the Year award. He's a 2020-2021 Big Ten regular season champion, a one-time NCHC goaltender of the month, an 8-time NCHC goaltender of the week, a 2022 GLI All-Tournament team member, a 2022 GLI champion, and the number one goalie for the Western Michigan Broncos right now. So welcome to the show, Cam. It's awesome to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
And that is a incredible resume to run through in just a few short years. So.
Yeah, it's been fun. A lot of ups and downs in there too, but it's been a fun time.
Yeah, so I guess we'll jump right in. You started at Wisconsin, a couple years there. Western had Brandon Bussey for 3 years. We only got to play for 2. Everyone kind of thought it was going to be weird. We didn't really know where the goalie situation was going because Brandon signed early. The 2 backup goalies had left. We had nobody coming in really, it seemed like. And then you and Kirk both came to us through the portal. And kind of what was that experience like for you? Jumping in from the portal and Western being where you ended up.
Yeah, I think talking about ups and downs, that's really where you get the one of the lowest lows of my career, and then what turned out to be probably the greatest thing for me in my career. I think when I was leaving Wisconsin, it was kind of a tough situation where, I thought to be honest, that's where I thought I was going to play all 4 years, and same thing, guys coming in from the portal, and I was getting bumped down, and I knew that I could play college hockey and play well, and I needed somewhere to get the opportunity to play, and I knew I wasn't going to get that at Wisconsin, so I went in the portal and really had to make a life decision. Do I just want to kind of rein it in and get my degree, or do I want to keep playing the hockey as high as I can? And that was the decision I made. And then, Western kind of came out hot right out of the gate. I got to give credit once I hit the portal. People that were close to me had connections to Coach Ferschweiler and the staff here at Western, and kind of knew what they were building, and kind of helped bridge that gap so I could connect with them. And it was kind of a no-brainer for where I was in that position, right? Like, I didn't know much about Coach Ferschweiler other than one phone call I had with him, and that was it really. That's what sold me. And I knew where Kalamazoo was, but I'd never been on campus, and I'd never watched a Western hockey game before then. I didn't know about the Lunatics or anything like that. So, but for me, just the opportunity to play, right? Like you said, the 3 guys that year previous had left. It was wide open net. And that's how Coach Firsch kind of said, like, hey, you're coming in. We're going to bring in other guys too to compete for that spot. But there's no better spot in NCAA D1 hockey right now to have an open look for a net other than right now here at Western. And he was 100% right about that. And then, the rest is history, I guess.
Was there any sense of pressure or anything knowing what Bussey had done here? I mean, your numbers, if you really look at your numbers are right there comparable to his. And I think that somehow gets lost in the fact that, Western's kind of been slightly below where maybe we came with, or what the results were with Brandon, but numbers wise, everything's kind of paired right there. It's just the conference as a whole has seemed to gotten better in those last few years.
Yeah, I didn't really have any comparables to Bussy going into it. I kind of wanted to just find my game again. I think that was a big thing for me, was finding my confidence in that, and reestablishing who I was on the ice. I think that's something that was big for me. So my sophomore year was pretty down. So a complete 180 of what my freshman year was. So for me, it was just trying to get back in net. And then I think it was just kind of the understanding, if I do the right things, and the numbers are going to kind of show for themselves. So, but I knew the legacy, right, of going to tournaments and keeping that streak alive. That's pretty big for this team, and understanding what we need to do to move forward to kind of get over that hill. But, I didn't have anything in mind that, like, hey, I want to do this. Just kind of just go play hockey and see how it goes.
think Mike realized what I just realized halfway through your answer, that we completely forgot our 1-2 warm ups. But
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was like, Wes just blatantly flat out lied to you. He's like, we're gonna do the 1T warm-ups and whatever, and then he just goes right into it. I'm
I
like,
got
dude,
excited about the question. Okay.
No, you're good because you said that, and then I started rambling a bit, and I was like, wait, should I keep these short? But I feel like
No,
I
no.
kind
All right.
of
Here we go.
explain
We're
a
we're
little
gonna
bit.
settle it back down. We're gonna take a
Yeah, you're
breather.
good. Yeah,
We're
I'll
gonna
take a
do. We're
sip.
gonna run through the 1-2 warm ups. Mike's gonna go first. These are quick
Mhm.
answers. We're gonna
Sounds good.
reset here a little bit.
All right.
all right, so are you a water bottle in the holder on top of the net kind of guy?
On the bench, I don't have a bottle on the net. There's no bottle on the net, they can't hit anything. So there you
Hey,
go.
that's true. I don't remember
Uh-huh.
who it was, but there was a guy who had it on a leash, and I was like,
Oh,
that
it's
is
some Yeah, some rinks do that because if it does get hit or like if a guy comes behind the net,
yeah.
it doesn't fall off into play. Um, I hate those. The I think Omaha does that, and I hate it because I have to unclip it every time, and it's hard to undo all my gloves and undo it.
Right.
So, but yeah,
What's the top chirp you've heard either from a fan or an opposing player?
chirp I've heard.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's the most consistent one I hear is how many teams are you going to play for in college? That one's pretty good. Um, but you know, they're not too creative with me, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, even that one's not. I mean, there's some guys who have definitely hit up a couple schools along the way. Two's not that bad anymore. It almost
Yeah.
seems to be the norm if you're an athlete. So,
Hmm.
What's your favorite pizza topping?
Uh, Sausage has to be. Yeah. Italian sausage.
would you rather have to windmill every glove save, or hear in your head out loud, like loud enough that everyone in the stadium can hear it, big
Hmm.
save every time you make a kick save?
Well, I'm guessing I'd make more glove saves, so I windmill those 100%.
And what's your favorite part of warm-ups?
Oh man. Um, that's a tough one because warm-ups can be like for me, I like kind of getting amped, but then also kind of controlling my breathing. Like it's kind of finding that middle spot for me. So honestly, though, I think when we go out for warmups and just seeing the amount of people that are already in the stadium for warmups, I think is like you just guys get juiced for that, right? Like we love that, and not a lot of rinks do that. You go out there and there's 10 people in the stands, and that's kind of it. But I mean, I love that people show up that early to watch warmups at our games.
And last one, favorite show to binge?
Oh man. Oh, that's so tough. If I'm in like kind of relaxing, just having a good time kind of mood, probably Seinfeld. Recently I've been watching a lot of The Wire, that HBO series, so um, that's kind of my go-to right now.
All
Mike?
right, Wes, or I
Oh,
can go.
I
Um,
whatever.
okay. Yeah, we're a well-oiled machine, as you've noticed. Um, so coming from the Big Ten into the NCHC, what were some of the differences that you noticed in the style of play and the teams? Because I know there were some Big Ten schools that were part of the old WCHA, which makes up most of the NCHC now. But what are the differences going from playing a Penn State and a Notre Dame to now playing North Dakota and St. Cloud and Denver on a consistent basis?
Yeah, I think the Big Ten, in general, now, like you mentioned Penn State and Notre Dame, and I actually think those are the two outliers in the Big Ten. But in general, the Big Ten's way more East-West. It's a lot more open hockey. It's a lot more of trying to find guys coming up the ice, while the NCHC is north and south. That's the best way I like to describe it. Like you're chipping the puck in from one zone to the next. Terminology we have is like leaving it forward for the next guy to go get the puck. And then you're F1, like first forward in, first guy in. He may not get anything special on the play, but his presence on the forecheck or creating a stall on the wall, that might lead to a potential goal. Now that guy might not get any credit, but that's what you have to do. Now in the Big Ten, I felt like it was a lot more playmaking. Like your heads up, you're trying to find the play right away rather than, hey, let's go and like let's, maybe this shift we just hit everybody, and I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of that in the Big Ten. I think that's the big thing. But now, the two teams that don't really play like that would be Penn State. Penn State just shoots the puck on net from everywhere that they are. So they play a little bit different. And then Notre Dame is so defensive. I think that they're the one team that doesn't fit that generalization of the Big Ten. They play so defensive. They play more like an NCHC team than a Big Ten team, in my opinion. But I think the biggest difference for me was the NCHC just comes at you hard. Like it's hard nosed. Like everybody's just gonna battle and grind, and then they have the skill on top of it to finish. Like you sometimes you don't expect it from guys like that to that play, third, fourth line, and they can come in on a breakaway and do what they need to do. I think that's the biggest difference. But the reason why our leagues are so good and compared to each other all the time is all the really good skill guys end up in the Big Ten, and all the guys that grind and play more of a pro style are from the NCHC, and when they get together, that's when it's fun.
The NCHC feels like it is the deepest goalie wise in the conference. You've got Caden out at Colorado, Davis, a national champion goaltender. Guys like Person have come through. Ryan Fancy was here before. Brandon Bussey, who I mentioned, and yet somehow they're still able to produce top 10 offenses. Western's been a top 10 offense 3 years in a row or something like that. Denver's a top 10 offense. North Dakota's been there. It's kind of impressive when you look at like the goalie numbers and then you see these top 10 offenses. Like, how does it feel to be stacked up with and talked about like with those other goaltenders and knowing that you're playing in such a deep conference?
I think it's great, and I think, like I said, the NCHC is a lot of pro hockey. That's how pro hockey is, right? I mean, look at the NHL. You get every team can score goals, and every team has a goalie that can steal games, and that's just how it is. And talking about your offenses, I think that they kind of go hand in hand, right? Like you can create offense by playing ugly hockey and dirty and gritty hockey, and the NCHC teams, it's just what they do, so you get the nice plays, but then you look at all the goals that are tips in front or scrums in front or plays out of the corner, stuff like that just kind of happen, and you're like, oh, like it's in the back of the net. I think any chance is a good chance in our league. And then for goaltending wise, it's fantastic, right? You have Umberko at CC, like you said, Davis winning the Natty. I mean, like look at that. He gets hot at the right time and leads that team. And then that was the missing piece that they needed to complete that. And Lukowski at Omaha is another great goalie, and I'm not sure who's at Duluth right now, but I know that they've reloaded as a team. And
I
same
think
thing with
it's
Miami.
Sandy, I think, is our number one. I don't know. I barely
Yeah,
watched. So
yeah, Miami's reloaded. So they're going to be better than what they have been in the last few years, in my opinion. Nodak got sent to Felter. I think that's how I say his name.
Yeah, that's what we've heard.
Yep. So I think you look at it, every team has a great 1A, and we're pretty lucky. We've got a great 1B now too. So I wouldn't say 1 and 2. I'd say 1A, 1B in my opinion. But it's for me personally to be a part of that, it's great. And Umberko is one of my good friends and someone that I've had great contact with, and we talk a handful of times every year. And I like being up there on the list with him because he's a great guy. He's a great goalie. So it's fun to compete with guys like that.
So now to back up with you becoming a goalie, what made you either become a goalie in general or what made you want to become a goalie? I played for 1 year. I loved it. My brother still plays goalie right now. How did that process happen? Because everybody has their own path and how they got to that position.
Yeah, so you play in house league, like pre-mite hockey. You're 5 years old, right? It's kind of just a rotation of who's in net. But my buddy, Hugh Brady, who I'm still good friends with today, he was our goalie, because he had gear. He was the only guy on the team that had gear. and I always kind of wanted to try it out. And there were a couple times like he couldn't make it, or our coach just let me play. I don't know. And since then, that was just kind of it. Like I was kind of hooked from it from there. There were two main reasons. The first was I was on the ice the entire game, which I loved being just a kid, just being on the ice, and then the gear, obviously. I mean, the gear is pretty sweet, so that's kind of the hook for a lot of guys. But I liked being on the ice for the whole time, and then when I was like, so that was probably seven, when I was like seven, and then turning eight, the spring season kind of came around, and it's like 6 weeks in Chicago where I'm from, and my parents like, hey, if you want to try this goalie thing, this would be the time to do it, because if you end up hating it, it's only 6 weeks. Like you're not stuck with it for a whole year. And found some pads at like just under the bleachers at the home rink I was at that kind of semi fit, and that was kind of it's kind of spiraled from there, I guess. But no, it was fun. I really enjoyed it kind of right off the bat, and yeah, so.
It is fun, especially when you're making the saves. Um, the one year that I played, unfortunately, we weren't that good, and so I got to see a lot of rubber. That was for sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's still it's fun when you're that young, and right, like you said, you're on the ice, you're playing the whole time. Whether you're singing to yourself in the net with the pucks on the other end or actually having to pay attention.
Yeah, I got to give credit to my dad for that. Up until I was like 12 or 13, like my first AAA team I was on. This isn't because of my dad, but I'll get there. But my first AAA team I was on, I was the only goalie. In AAA hockey, you play like 62 games or something ridiculous like that. So that I was 12 years old and played 5 games in 48 hours, like every weekend. So that was fun. But like my dad, I remember in spring stuff, he would be like, yeah, like I'll sign you up for spring tournaments. And I'm playing for a team like comes up to Chicago. They're from Florida, like don't have a goalie, right? Just spring hockey. They're having, and I'll play for them, and played with kids from St. Louis to like I loved that. But his role was you're the only goalie. Like, I'm not signing you up for your team if there's another goalie, because I'm not splitting. You're not playing 3 games. You're going to play all 6. And I was like, okay, sure. You're young. You're limber as can be. It doesn't matter, right? You don't get tired. So, but no, I think just seeing as many shots as I could, that's and playing as much as I could. That's all I wanted to do. So,
Yeah, I kind of did something similar to that. I was in two different baseball leagues at the same time, and I was a catcher. And one was really, really bad, and one was a little bit better.
mhm.
But I couldn't hit for shit. It didn't matter which league it was in. So I was like, I hate both of these. I like catching, but batting, I was like, I'll just bunt or please God hit me with the ball so I could just be over there and not swing this thing. Let's see. A lot of turnover this year for Western. I think it's almost like a completely new team in front of you. I mean, and we were going through the lines one day, and I don't think there's really any complete line that came back from last year. And then you guys play a team this weekend, the U.S. development team, who's got a few games together under your belt, but it's Western's first live action as a team. How's that process? Just kind of hoping, or the gelling process of guys in lines, and what that looks like in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, with it being our first game, everyone's kind of chomping at the bit, right? I think the coaching staff does a great job of first couple of weeks of training camp. They're kind of directing guys to kind of learn the systems and understand what they need to do, and they're trying to feel out all the new guys too, right? Like who fits in where, who's kind of getting it, who's not, who has different skill sets that complement other guys' lines, stuff like that. But for the last 3 weeks, something like that, the lineup for practice has been the exact same. So that chemistry has already been building, and we've had freshmen here since before school started. So we've really gotten to get to know those guys a lot. Same thing with the transfers; they were here even earlier. So it's been it's been good. It's been the staff does a great job. They tell it how it is. We spend like 2 weeks at the start of training camp of just going over and learning systems, and then from then on, they just expect us to know it. I think we talked about 4-on-4 earlier today, and first did a 5-minute video on it. And at the end, he goes, all right, anybody have any questions? And no one said anything. And he goes, all right, well, now we expect you to do it every single time from here to the end of the year. So that's pretty much how things run. So I think those guys are getting their feet wet too, right? I think the brown and gold game helped out a ton, just kind of getting back in that setting, and then just playing against NTDP. It's fun for us just to kind of guys can showcase what they do, right? And kind of get put in that role and they finalize the spots. But we'll see this weekend how the roster comes out and how things are looking, and we'll just take it one game at a time from there.
Uh, One more on and playing the development team there. How do you guys view that game? Because like for us, I like it more when it's at the beginning of the year than I do kind of mid-season. I think there's been a couple teams like North Dakota scheduled it in the middle of the year, and it just feels weird there. Um, but on the outside, like as a fan, it's like it's grown men playing kids. There doesn't really seem to feel like a lot of upside. Like if you win, yeah, you should have won because again, they're legit like kids. If you lose, a bunch of grown men lost to kids, and we got to figure out what's happening there and maybe shake some things up. But how do you guys view the game? Is it just another game? Are you trying to take something off and maybe not go full tilt because it's the first game of the year and you're not trying to be, because it was definitely like a physical game, and it definitely looks like Team USA was like, hey, we might be kids, but you're not going to push us around and run through us. So
Yeah, no, I think we treated it like a real game, right? We ran through our normal team warm up, and everyone's trying to work out the kinks, right? Like we were doing our team warm up stuff, and just getting the freshmen on board and kind of telling that like there's a bunch of stuff on game day we do that we I remember when I transferred in, no one told me, and it's just what we did. And then because you just kind of learn, I think it kind of sets the precedent of this is just what we do here. Like we get it, you guys are learning today, but then after that, same thing. We expect you to follow along from here until the end of the year. But playing against NTDP, like you said, I think there's we rolled 7D in 5 lines. That's more than we can roster in a real game. Guys are competing for spots, right? So they're going to go hard and do what they need to do. I think for us, it's important just to guys to get that out of the system, for the guys that know that they're going to play to get back in the speed of that game, and for the younger guys to kind of see that speed. And I think NTDP is a great team to do that against because they play super super fast. I think that's something that's fantastic. And in the middle of the year, I kind of agree with you a little bit. I think the middle of the year exhibition game against them is interesting. But I get coming back from Christmas break, you don't want to go right back into the games, So you kind of there's a pro and con to both situations. And then when I played at NTDP, I remember all those college games. Like every time we played a college team, it was like the Super Bowl. Like that was the most fun we've ever had. So they always come out juiced, and I agree with you. They were a lot more physical than I thought they were going to be out of the gate, but it's big boy hockey.
Lunatics were in mid-season form, treating them like any other
Yeah.
team that came into Lawson.
Oh,
I was
big
sitting
time.
there, I turned it on and here they are chanting Forza bitch to some 16-year-old. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I said that before we went out there. We were huddled up in the room before the game, and I was like, yeah, I remember, fellas, like they're not legal adults yet. So, and they can't vote in the election coming up. So, it kind of made guys laugh too. So, um, yeah.
It's
Oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead,
No,
Wes.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say it seems like especially once you get into conference play, there are certain teams just always match up well with each other. And UMD and Western, no matter who's the goalie, who's on the roster, or whatever they have, there always seems to be great tight games between the two programs. What what is it that is it the coaching, or what is it that certain schools just always seem to match up and have great tight games versus others where just I always know UMD, we've been down, you guys have been up, two teams meet, it's a one goal game that goes pretty much down to the end 99% of the time. What makes that have one team just have a number of the others?
I think it's a mix of things. I think coaching is 100% it. I believe that teams kind of embody the personality of their coaches. So I don't know who's Duluth's head coach.
Scott Sandlin, and he's been
Scott's,
there for like 80 billion years.
yeah, so I've never met him personally. So I don't know anything about him, to be honest. But like you said, if he's been there for a while, like he's doing something right, and I think you get I think we both play gritty, we both play hard, and we both play disciplined. And I think that that's the biggest thing. Like those guys, I actually Kyle Bettens,
Yeah,
he was my roommate this year at Toronto's Dev Camp. Um, and so him and I spent a few days together, which is fun getting to know him. And same thing, like we're just kind of sharing stories about school and what it's like, and crazy coaching stories, but kind of just shooting it. And sounds pretty similar in the terms of like how we feel of where we're at, and how things are run and how things are kind of perceived at the school. And I think that it's a culture thing, that kind of transcends year after year after year. And I don't think that there's one specific reason why they're close games, but um, I think it's a mix, a lot of factors of just two hard nosed teams going at each other.
My brain just blanked out. That was a really good answer, and then I forgot
I
where I was going.
I could tell you short circuited there for a second.
If based, okay, here we'll go this way. You mentioned, a team kind of picks up the personality of the coaching staff, and a lot of us, at least at Western, understand like Furch is a guy who likes to keep the bench calm, and there's a calmness that takes over in a game. But how would you perceive Sandlin based on how UMD plays, or what you get from like that team competing against them that you might draw about the coach?
Oh man, I think that it's tough because I don't want to speak about him or for him in any way because I don't
Right.
know him. And I just know from what Bettens has said, but and then again, like we're not trading secrets when we talk about stuff like that. But I think they played. You know what their system's going to be, and they stick to it, right? Like what our system. Every team knows. You do pre-scout, right, on every team that you play. Everybody knows what our neutral zones look like. Everybody knows what our four checks look like. Everybody knows how we run our D zone, especially the D zone. But it works because you believe in it, and it works because you do it the right way over and over and over again. I know that that's for us. I would say, if I had to put my finger on it, I think it's just a little bit of that, not old school mentality, but a little bit more of you need to kind of sacrifice a little bit for your buddy to have success. And then everybody down the line, you just keep that chain moving forward and forward. And then everybody's having success because everybody's sacrificing something, right? So um, I think that's the best answer I got because I don't know him, but
No, I mean that's a
I would.
solid answer. Like based on like what I get sound bites or what I've kind of noticed from him watching him coach on the bench. Like I would say that's a pretty good representation, at least of how I understand him to be the coach there, and I think a lot of guys would agree with it. So
Mhm.
And that's yeah, even for me, I mean I don't know him personally, never met the guy, but he's from I think he grew up about 30 minutes away from where I grew up. And the way that I understand it, it's the embodiment of that whole area of northern Minnesota, that blue collar, nose down, hardworking, and that translates to the team. And I think that's why the fan base is so, not counting the student section because that's gone downhill, but the other fans, that's how they feel about the same team, and it's a representation of them as a community on the ice. And yeah, he's gotten head coaching offers in the NHL, and he's like, nah, I'm good.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
gonna
and
get
I think
stuck
that
there.
yeah, and I think that that's pretty similar to like I think you're spot on with that about talking about embodying the culture, right? I think he's accepted that, and then the fans have kind of gone around that team because they have something that they can relate to, right? And I think for a lot of people in Kalamazoo, our team plays the same kind of way that, it's something they can relate to. And uh, yeah, I think understanding kind of the environment that you're in is what breeds it. And like you said, playing blue collar, I think it's the same thing. And then the same thing with First, right? First coached in the NHL for a little bit as an assistant with Detroit, and he came back and he's been like, this is the job I've wanted. Like, this is where I want to be. And he's 100% in, and signed that contract extension at the end of last year or mid last year or 2 years ago or something like that. So I think, I can definitely see that. You just fast forward time a little bit and it's going to be pretty similar in my opinion.
Speaking of the relationship between the fans and players, you are a very popular guy amongst the Lost and Lunatics. How has that grown from your first year here? I think it was kind of everybody was waiting to see what was going to happen. Like I said, I think on the fan wise, we were spoiled with what Brandon had. Where we were getting to know you. It was different stories there, but you've made a positive impression. You've had some great games. You've like I said, your numbers are right there with him, and you've become a fan favorite amongst the Lunatics. You got your own little movement when you make a big save, and they're ready to row the boat every time a W comes up in your favor.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I got stopped in Meyer about a month ago by three guys. Kind of freaked me out at the start because I was just like looking at something random at Meyer, and they come up behind me and go, "Hey, are you Cameron Rowe?" And I was just like, "I don't know, maybe." Like, I don't know. And they're like, "Yeah, no, like my name is like blah blah blah. We're like we saw you play last weekend. Like we go to all the games." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And then like midway through, I was like, "Yeah, what's your guys' names? Like you didn't introduce yourselves at all. You just um and then like 2 weeks later, I was getting my oil change done and I was waiting probably 25, 30 minutes to like roll in. And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry for taking a while." I'm like, "No worries. I'm not in a rush. Like just getting an oil change. I can get it done quick." And then he does it and he's like, "All right, what's your last name?" I go Rowe, and he looks at me and he goes, "Cameron." I was like, again, like, I don't know, maybe. I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Dude, I am so sorry I made you wait." It's like, no, I don't. It's totally fine. I think the last story I have is at graduation last year. I walked off the stage and like six random guys up in the crowd started doing the road chant as I was walking off. And like, I can't even describe like what that means to us as players, and then being able to be in a community like that with this school that does that. Like playing in Wisconsin, it's a Big Ten team, and the only reason why people knew I was an athlete is because we had red backpacks with our number on it. But besides that, like, no one cared. Like, no one cared. No one knew who you were. No one, this was just when NIL started, and my freshman year was COVID, so there was nobody around. But I mean, even then, like, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like no one, there was no connection to it. But here it's you just going around Kalamazoo and people know who our team is and know the guys and want to stop and talk and have stuff like this. Like you guys are just fans and you want to talk to us and kind of pick our brains for a little bit. And I think that's fantastic. You don't get that everywhere. So um, it's Kalamazoo's been great to me, and the Lunatics are fantastic. And then at this point, like I'm just having fun. I didn't, I wasn't sure, wasn't in my plan to come back for a fifth year. Just kind of how it happened. So now I'm just making the most of it at this point because it's fantastic, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say you went pretty hard on senior night last year, leaving the ice after sweeping Miami, um, and then it kind of like being at the regional there in St. Louis. Like I don't know if you guys talked about it beforehand, but just kind of the body language on the ice was different leaving that game. Um, watching like Granger before he made his announcement that he wasn't coming back. Uh, Colangelo, you kind of knew was going because of his already having been drafted and things of that nature. But there was definitely a different body language amongst those guys. And even if you hadn't maybe 100% made that decision to come back yet, like your body language was different than theirs too. Um, but but yeah, like you went so hard on senior night that I think everybody, including the students who stayed to catch you come back on the ice, were enjoying the shit out of that.
No, it's fantastic. And I think there were at the end of last year, like, guys kind of, like you said, like guys kind of knew, some guys knew where they were going at the end of the season. And it's no fault to their own. That's just the business side of hockey. That's just situations. And guys know it's their last game. And guys know that they're leaving town in 24 hours. And after whenever we lose, right? That sucks, but that's what it is. Yeah, so for me personally, it was, that game ended and walked down the lobby to see my parents, and my agent calls me and goes, "Hey, like there's a coast team that wants to sign you up for their playoff run." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I just we lost 45 minutes ago. So it took me, I don't know, a week to kind of sit on everything and kind of figure it all out. And then we did exit meetings because we had a mandatory 2 weeks off after the season ends. So we had exit meetings after that. And um, after that, it was just kind of, I went into Firsch's office and was like, "Hey, I just want to see what you're thinking, right? And kind of what you're doing." And he kind of left it pretty open ended. And I was honest with him. I was like, "Hey, I've got this. I have these three things, or I have this offer, and I'm not 100% sold on it. It's not what I want. Like, is there an option for me to come back?" And he goes, "Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, if you want to come back, that's fine with us. Just let us know, because we need to know what we're going to do if you decide to leave," right? Which is, again, the business side of it. So I kind of had 24 hours at that point to figure it all out, and um, kind of just sat on it. And then the next morning, I just opened up Firsch's office, and I said, "Hey, like, I'm in." And he was like, "All right." I was like, "All right." And then that was it. That was the extent of the conversation. And then I was just kind of waiting to see how all the other else chips fall. But I mean, I knew, you take those 2 weeks out and then you add 24 hours. I knew I was coming back for sure after that. I think, it wasn't really my priority to publicize that. And no one asked, to be honest, for a couple months. So I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I think Western waited until I want to say like maybe May, and then announced the guys who had all decided to come back, and it was you, Cam Knuble, Tim Washy. I want to say there was one more, but I don't even remember if there. I think it was just the three of you guys. Um, but big, maybe not big minute guys, but big role guys for sure. And Tim's one of the better face-off guys in the conference, and really takes a positive leadership role in that locker room. He was rewarded with the C this year, and I think it's good to have those culture guys who can still come back and help build the culture for the big number of transfer guys and freshmen that we had come in this year.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense, honestly. With me noobs and T, just kind of, and you're relying on, the senior class below us isn't really that big either of returners, and the junior class isn't that big either. So it's kind of a collective front of the 6 or 7 of us returners, of the older guys, I guess you could say, to kind of take care of all that. And it's like you see Mateo get rewarded with an A, and Bumper has as a sophomore has an A. And I think that just kind of speaks to those guys. Everyone's got to step up a little bit with 15 or 16 new faces. Like, that's, a lot of questions, a lot of guys trying to figure out where they're going to live, and what the food when we're getting fed, and what ice times look like, and um, how to handle just life at Western, and places to eat, and like, your girlfriend comes in town, like, where do I take her to dinner? Where do I take the, stuff like that. And it's, I remember my freshman year, how much myself and my freshman class relied on those upperclassmen guys, and we had a great leadership core that year. And I got to be honest, it's kind of fun to be in that position to then kind of give it back, pay it forward to those guys, and I think it's, um, but like you said, having those locker room guys come back, it's why Noobs has an A, right? Because he's a fantastic guy in the room. He's one of my best buddies on the team, and really calm, really easygoing, and but loves hockey, and is all for Western. So, um, yeah, we've got a good core, and then the older guys coming in, transfers too. Like they're here they're on a mission here, and they know why they're here, and they've bought into that, so they'll buy into anything that we put in front of them. So just kind of directing the freshmen to, you know, catch up, get them up to speed.
You got a question, Mike?
Well, I was just thinking, because when we talked with Tristan, first of all, I learned he's a terrible salesman because he couldn't get Zeev to go to the NHL and come play for the Wild. Uh, but who who do you look forward to playing the most out of just even individual players, especially once you get into the conference? Like, what what players are you most excited to play and then, stop when they come down on you and try to take a shot? Like, who's the most exciting to play against?
I don't really pay attention to the guys on the other team other than the goalie on the other side. I think that's the only guy I'm trying to beat, and then that's kind of the fun personal battle with goaltending. You're trying to, I got told this in juniors by my head coach, and he said, like, all you got to do is make one more stop than the guy across from you. So I think I look at it more of the goalie battles of it and building that kind of respect. Like I said, with like Berkey, every time him and I go at it, it's usually a 1 goal game, and it's a great goalie battle, um, and that's when it's most fun. Is when you're able to do that. I don't really forwards wise. I mean, other than like if there's a guy I used to play with, like Stang and Erdahl at Omaha, I played with them at Wisco. So I think when we play Omaha, like just seeing those guys on the ice again, it's fun because those are your buddies, right? You're out there, you're playing against them now, you're competing against them. So if I had to pick players, I would say those two, but I'm not really in like oh man, I gotta jam you. I'm waiting for the minute you get a breakaway so I can poke. Like, no, I don't, whatever happens, happens. All I want to do is just compete against the guy across from me and take it from there.
You're not gonna pull a flurry and poke check him in the skates, so he ends up in the boards.
Yeah, no,
Trying
I,
to.
I, I, I did that to Kreuzberg Rosine like 3 weeks in a training camp and first called me for a tripping penalty. So I'm not doing that anymore.
That might be one of the best clips ever when he poke checked the shit out of, but what's his name, the kid in Chicago, like in the
Dard,
first
yeah.
shootout.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
during the shootout, that was fantastic.
Hmm.
I
Um,
mean, how do you not love Flower? He he dressed up as an ice crew member in one of the preseason games. He had a mustache and everything. I'm like, I was so happy when he came here. I'm like, I don't care. He's still like wherever he plays, he's gonna be one of my favorite players ever.
Yeah, and he was chirping the boys as he skated by with the shovel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
was there a particular goalie that stood out, as a kid watching the game that got you into hockey more than others, or was it just kind of maybe you were just a fan of the Blackhawks because they've had a pretty good list of goalies too.
Yeah, I think um, when I was really young, I loved Dominic Hasek. Like my I had videos that like the NHL made where it was like NHL's like greatest goals of all time and then like greatest saves of all time. And I think I had like Don Cherry 17. I think that was the video I had. And tons of clips of like Richter, Brodeur, Hasek, like all those guys. So I kind of didn't grow up in that era, but that's like when I was in the car rides, right? Like I was like, Mom, let's put that video in, and I'd watch that 100 times, right? So I think though, like Hasek for me was always someone that I kind of just was in awe of watching. Um, Chris Joseph was another guy in there, I think. But then growing up watching hockey, right? Lundqvist was always my favorite. Yeah, that was my guy. And then when the Hawks were winning all those cups, I that Crawford for me when I remember watching when I was younger, and I was like, I don't really like him because he wasn't that fun. A little bit of a mix between like the new school and didn't, but it's like good skating, great positioning, but like didn't really do a whole lot. And net at least, wasn't the most athletic goalie. And just I was like, yeah, it's not fun watching him. And then now I'll rewatch like the Cup final game in 2015, and I'm like, dude, like this guy was so good. Like I don't know what I was talking about. Like, like it's um I mean Crawford was always going to be special to me winning those cups in Chicago, but Lundqvist was that was my guy. I remember watching Quick his rookie year. They came and played the Hawks, and same thing. I remember watching him and just being blown away by how he moved. And um, so yeah,
Yeah, there's some guys
What
who
what
just know how to be in the right spot to get hit with a puck, and other guys who have got to figure out how to get there at the last second.
yep. Mhm.
what's it like being a fan of a team that knows how to win a championship? I'm just, asking for a friend or something or a whole state.
Yeah, 3 and 5. We got lucky with that one for sure. But yeah, I remember I got pretty spoiled. I remember in 2010, like we won it, and my parents were like, "Yeah, this doesn't." So my quick side note: my parents are from Detroit. So
I knew there was a reason
when
you
I
liked your
was,
dad.
yeah, so they're from the Detroit area and grew up Wings fans. My dad, another side story, real quick. My dad actually worked at the Joe in '97 and '98 as a beer vendor.
Nice.
So yep. And at the time when they won the cup that year, they gave all the staff members like rings, like replica of what the players got. So it's kind of this like funny thing that my dad's got a Stanley Cup ring, right? And he didn't play hockey until he was 21 years old. And now that, he's got the ultimate prize that I'm trying to chase. But when I grew up as a kid, like my first jersey was a Papa Datsyuk jersey. Like I kind of grew up a Wings fan, and I got lucky that they won in '08, and that's before I transitioned to a Blackhawks fan. So I kind of got a great stretch in my childhood of the Wings in '08 and then the Hawks in 10, 13, and 15. So no, but I remember in 2010, like the parents were like, this doesn't happen often. So like you're very lucky that you got to watch this happen now. And then in 2013, I was like, yeah, I think this is just the new normal. So
Yeah,
yeah.
out of the four major men's sports, I was about 2 months old the last time Minnesota won the championship. So, no, it doesn't happen very often.
Nope. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit of a drought here, in my opinion, for Chicago sports. But I don't know, Hawks give it 3 more years. They'll be right back where they used to be.
Detroit's on some kind of weird run right now. It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable though. Good
Oh,
for them.
so much fun. Between the Lions, the Red Wings getting stuff going, almost having a shot at the playoffs last year, and then the Tigers doing what the Tigers are doing, and Tigers trying to pull off what the Blues did, go from damn near worst to first. And I think the St. Louis Cardinals were a team that struggled and then somehow snuck in as a wild card and stole the series back in 2011 or something like that. So there's some
Mhm.
history that shows that it can be done, and we're just hoping that it's our turn this year.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
All right, Wes, I don't know what you have. I know I have three more left, but I don't know what you have.
Um, I just got the GLI is coming back up. You got to defend the championship you took. Um, Teams look like they might be a little bit better than than the last time you guys were there. Michigan State's playing extremely well. They've got a really good goaltender that you've matched up with. Last year. Um, Boys might be looking for a little revenge after the regional there. Another big game or a couple big games is the series with Michigan. Western's been chomping at the bit to play Michigan again for the last couple seasons. Unfortunately, it's Thanksgiving weekend. But what are some of the games that you're looking forward to, or the tournaments or whatever coming up?
We have a great schedule this year. I think, like you said, Michigan's the big one, and then the GLI is something special that everyone talks about. Especially not playing it last year. We have a whole group of guys that, the guys that won it from last year. We or 2 years ago, I should say, we talk about it a lot in the trophies in the equipment room, and those guys walk by it and they ask about it. We're like, dude, wait till you play in it. So I think we just have a great schedule coming up. We have BC in a couple of weeks, so we're looking forward to going out east to see them. And um, yeah, we just do the coaching staff did a great job with this working the schedule. So
I wanted to make that trip, but it is just not financially plausible at this point in my sad life. But I
Yeah,
was looking at trying to get there, and I was like, that is so much money for one damn night.
it's unfortunate.
It's all right. I'll find a couple. I'm gonna try and get to the Michigan game in Ann Arbor since I got hosed the last time I was supposed to go. It was the game that got canceled during the what did they end up calling it? It wasn't the GLI that year. It was well, I mean it was, but it wasn't. It was like the Great Lakes Showcase or something during the COVID year because they didn't want to play it as an actual tournament. And Michigan was like, "Yeah, we're gonna suit up like 7 draft picks, but we're not gonna play them 2 games in a row because it could get them hurt." So
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of wonky stuff going on right here.
And then they got bounced in the NCAA tournament that year. That was fun.
you mean like they do almost every year?
Yeah, pretty much. Um, okay,
I'm gonna
so
take shots where I can because
you need to. I'm not taking any shots at Wisconsin because you don't play there anymore, so I don't need to. Um, so typically I would have 4 questions, but since you're still playing, I don't want you to get in trouble for anything. I'm not going to ask the fourth one, even though if you were, missing from the UMD series, I'd be okay with that. Uh, Gives us a better chance at winning.
I don't know
So
that it does.
I have 3.
We have a very solid goaltending room this year.
I told you we got one. We don't have a 1 and 2. We have a 1A and a 1B.
Hey, I'm just going off of what I know,
Yeah,
that
that's fair.
what I've seen.
It's fair. That's fair.
Uh, so the first question is, what is your favorite NCHC arena to go to play at?
I mean, Nodak, other than us, obviously, but to go somewhere would be North Dakota. I mean, that's one of the hallowed halls of all of college hockey. I think being able to say that, and then for me personally, being committed there at 1.2, it's fun to um, kind of go back there, and we've had some tough games, but we've also had success in that building. So um, I would say North Dakota is definitely up there.
That seems to be the general answer, and um, I can't really blame anybody for that. I haven't been to a game there, but just watching on TV, it's that arena is like the Alabama of college hockey. There's nothing else around there. It's 6 hours from the Twin Cities. It is their pro team, and going back to earlier talking about community, they live, breathe, die by that team. And it goes across all of northern Minnesota too. There are a lot of North Dakota fans. So that would be really fun to play there. Um, and then my last two, they kind of go hand in hand. When you first walk through that tunnel at Lawson, what was your first reaction to the Lunatics? And then in warmups, when you saw a grown man with his face painted like Sting, the wrestler, what was your first reaction to seeing that just staring holes through everyone on the ice?
I think I gotta be honest. I think what freaked me out more was that he had a Twitter page that everybody knew. That's um, I think the painted face thing was just all right, man. They go intense here, but then the fact that there's a whole Twitter page for that guy with that, I was like, yep, this is something different right here. This is awesome. So, yeah, no, it was great. I think the Lunatics coming from, and even for me, like we didn't really have great. My freshman year, our team was good, but it was COVID, so there were no fans. And then sophomore year, our team was brutal, so there weren't really a lot of people even in a rink that held 13,000 at that point. But and definitely not any students. So I think coming to Lawson and just you can, there's a feeling. I was talking with Hampton about it on the bench during the NTDP game, and I was in net still, and he was just on the bench. It was a TV timeout, and I kind of went over there, and I was like, and I just looked at him and I go, "Do you feel it?" Like, and he was like, "Dude, this is unbelievable." I go, "Yeah," and this isn't even like a full packed house, like a rivalry. Like this is maybe student sections maybe 60, 70% full. The season ticket holders are maybe at 50% full. Like this isn't even when it's juiced. And he was like, dude, this is nuts. And I think for me that's kind of how it was the same thing. Like you kind of get out there and you get a feel for it. And it took, I gotta be honest, it took me a little bit to get used to it. But after that, it's fantastic. And anybody you ask, where their favorite place to play is, it's, from, like you said, general answers, Nodak. I mean, Western's always right there too. So I think it's pretty special when you have you're comparing, University of North Dakota and their facilities and the biggest scoreboard in all of indoor arenas, which is nuts, to, Lawson with the incredible Lunatics and all the fans and the noise. It's two completely different things, but, very similar feelings and experiences. And that's what makes it special, right? It's such a great recruiting tool too, of just getting kids here and playing, because they're like, guys are like, yeah, what's it like? And we're like, we can't even describe it. Like, you just got to go out there and experience it for yourself. And I remember being told that too. And yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we talked to Tristan about that because he's, him, Mateo, I think Drasner now, Cassetti last year. They're a special group of guys who've gotten to experience it from both sides. They've skated out to them, to the Lunatics, just on them the whole game, and then to come in and have that energy going towards you as opposed to trying to be an opposition force to whatever you're trying to do. It has to be an experience of its own. So we definitely understand that, like, the Lunatics are their own thing, and you're not really gonna stop them from doing what they want. But I think it's better to play for them than against them, really.
100%. And just this weekend, someone was telling me, like, yeah, like I've met with so and so from the school, and they've told me to make sure they stop doing that, and they just won't listen. It's like, yeah, man, I don't know why you're telling me this, because I'm not going to tell them anything. So, um, you got to figure that out, man. I just got to do my job, and you handle that. But um, yeah, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. It made my little cousin start doing that Forza, chant, which is good. So, yeah, they're watching like hockey on TV, and someone has number 4, and they'll just start saying it. And yeah,
That's hilarious.
Yeah, they are a terrible, terrible influence on children.
oh yeah, big time.
I may or may not have partaken in some of those things firsthand when back in my day when I was a student there. But
Dude, I would do it. Oh my God, I would do it. My brother
oh,
right now is a freshman at Minnesota. Doesn't play hockey. He just goes there, and he'll send me videos of him at the football games doing stuff. I'm like, dude, you don't even understand how cool of an experience that is. And like for me, like I don't get that, right? Or I didn't get as much of it as, the experience that you guys get.
right.
Because we go to one football game a year that we're able to go to, and then like the off basketball game and like the one-off volleyball game that we're able to go to. But even then, like we show up and we don't even know what's going on. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah, and I know even there's a kid that my dad, he coached him his 7th grade year in basketball. He's from school next to mine, and he's a freshman on the Gopher basketball team this year. And my mom keeps up with everything. Well, they go there and we talk to his grandparents. They have to sit in a specific section. They don't even get to sit with the regular students. The basketball team has to sit in a specific section and be like protected. And I'm like, they're gonna finish last in the Big Ten anyway, but they they kind of get that experience, but they don't get the full student experience. And even now with at Amsoil, it used to be um I went to the small school next to UMD, but we'd go in and you had the lower bowl and the upper bowl was the student section. Now you go there, the lower bowl sometimes is barely filled, and it disappoints me because it used to be so much more fun.
Hmm.
And then I think somebody ruined it with a chant against North Dakota, and they got a lot more strict. But that's another story for another time. You can look it up.
Yeah, I don't know that story, but we can pass on that one.
It's almost unfair that you guys have to, you only get to go to one game, but then when it's almost unfair to the other teams who have to come to a hockey game though, and they see the interaction of the student section, and then some of theirs it's almost nobody there. Like football games, a lot of people leave at halftime. Basketball is tough to draw a crowd, um, and it's super disappointing with all the success that fall sports had last year and continue to have this year. Like the men's soccer team is on a roll that's stupid. I think the women's
Mm-hmm.
soccer team is doing stupid things again. Volleyball's right there again. Like, does some of that like trickle over, or do you guys see that and like you're like, all right, how do we get in on this and keep it rolling as a university as a whole?
I think what's tough about the fall sports is some of them start even before school starts.
Right.
So or they get started like right as school starts. So it's not really something that's as established in like, well, it's the first week of school, like let's go to the men's or women's soccer game. Like I don't I'm a student athlete here and I get like I very rarely hear about, oh, this is happening at this time. Um, so I think that that's part of it. I think the other part is it's just the history of hockey at the school that this is just what it's been. Like this is what's grown over years and decades of work from the team and from the Lunatics too, like building that reputation. Um, and I think Dan Bartholomew, our AD, has done a great job of, and he's done a great job of embracing the Lunatics, which is great. And he wants that to be at all the sports or some version of that. There's
Yeah.
definitely things he wants to clean up, but there's things that of those that he wants at all of the other sports. I think it's building that and promoting it and having a good product on the field. And my personal thing is it's difficult when you have like like our team's doing good. We're 3 years in a row in the tournament, right? Men's soccer is doing fantastic. Women's soccer is doing great this year. Um, Volleyball winning the MAC, if I'm correct, last year, but having an insane season. Like, but if we're being honest, that's not big sports in college. It's not football. It's not basketball. Baseball too. Baseball had a good season last year, and like I love baseball, and I just personally I wasn't able to go to any of the games, but and then at the same time, like you only play like 10 or 15 like 10 home games.
Yeah.
So and like soccer, same thing, and like there's sports that just aren't even they're just not on campus enough to have that, and I think it's not Western's fault. It's just geography, right? You can't play baseball in March in Michigan.
Yeah.
It's tough. So I think that that's part of it. Hockey's just really accessible, and it's so long. We have the longest season of any college sport. So it just kind of keeps going and going and going, and it goes through all avenues of the year. It's kind of something that's just like always there. Football's the first half, basketball's the second half, hockey's there all year long. So um, I think it's just kind of the consistency, and it's something that's known in the school, and so it makes it special. But I don't really have an answer of why that is or how to transfer that. I think you just need to start having. I think if football, basketball, especially create winning seasons, it's going to help all the sports in general.
Yeah, 2016 was absolutely insane when Western went undefeated in the MAC, went, only lost to Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl. Like, that year was absolutely nuts. It would have been cool if they could have built on that, but somebody had to, say they were coming home, but really they were coming home to pack a bag and go somewhere else. But
and don that maroon and gold instead of the black and gold. No, we did have Dan on, and you can tell he really does care, and he wants this for all the programs. It was just a little awkward because the day we had him scheduled, he ended up firing the football coach.
yeah,
So that was Wes and I were talking. We're like, huh, all right, well,
You guys could have been
gonna move.
famous on that. You got the break and scoop right there. First ones to leak it.
yeah. I mean, thankfully we're a hockey podcast, not a football podcast, because I think that definitely would have controlled some of the narrative. But no, he was fun to talk to, and he was actually like one of our first big guests that we had on. But I need you to convince your dad to come on, because I've mentioned it like twice to him, and he keeps disappearing because he only checks Twitter like once a day. And
He's if that.
yeah,
Um, I think he's pretty busy right now with work and trying to finish some things up. Once the season gets going, it'll be easier to get a hold. Um, but I think yeah, my dad's kind of becoming a little bit of a celebrity. So I think it's funny when I see people now, they're like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Good, how are you?" And then the next thing is, how's Rocky doing?
yeah.
It's kind of that's how it goes. Yeah, so
I was trying to explain to Mike. I think one time I was like, "Your dad reminds me a lot of Ethan Frank's dad." Um, I don't know if they've gotten an opportunity to meet each other or not, but like the just how much they care about the stuff that you guys are into by the efforts they go to, um, and to show up and show out and be social as they are, and like just the overall great dudes that they are. Your dad reminds me a lot of Ethan Frank's dad, and we had Ethan's dad on, and like great dude. Your dad's a great dude, and like I said, we would love to have him on and talk with him too.
yeah, I'll mention it to him, and like I don't know, like have you heard the whole story about him with the Saturdays are for Lunatics flag?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just that of like him like sending me a photo with a bunch of lunatics right in the stands, and he's like, "I got this flag." It's like I don't even understand how you did this, and um, we took that photo again when we beat Denver 7-2 out on that Saturday night, and there's that photo. It's still on the Instagram of us outside our team bus with the flag, and my dad's in the middle of us with the team with the flag. And I remember he was like, "We gotta get a team photo." Everybody's on the bus, right? And I just kind of was like, I don't know, Dad. We gotta get going here a little bit, but I'll like just going up and ask. And I like got up to the top step of the bus and I was like, "Fellas, my dad wants to take a photo." And like the before I could finish, like I remember Wenner was like, "Hell yeah, like let's do it." And then like everybody's got up and took it, and that's just kind of what it was. And but yeah, it's kind of grown into a life of its own. So I know on graduation night, Granger called my dad and was like, "Where are you? I want to see you." And so there you go. But I'll leave it at that. But it's yeah, it's something else.
I think we're gonna end it there. I think we've eaten up enough of your time. I greatly
No, all
appreciate it.
good. Yeah, absolutely.
You got a season to prep for. Big test coming home and home with Ferris. I think for like the third year in a row that's how we start the year. But some great games always between those two teams. They're coming off a couple ties with Miami, so they've played some real games, and Western gets its taste at opening up the season. Friday nights here, the Lunatics are going to be doing lunatic things, and Saturdays up north. I have to work at the bar because there's a home football game. Fantastic. Uh, but no, once again, thank you for your time. It was great chatting with you, and we're gonna end her there. So if anyone's watching and they want to do the YouTube stuff, it's there for you to do. Some information that's scrolling at the bottom if you need any of those things. For me, Mike, and Cam, we're out of here. So thanks a lot.